All right, I think we got time for one more question.
One more? All right, you ready for this? Here we go.
I'm ready.
Dear Workplace Therapist, I'm trying to figure out which issues at my work I am supposed to handle on my own and which I'm supposed to take to the HR manager. Is there a formula you can give or certain areas that definitely flag HR expertise rather than my own? Signed, headed to HR?
This is the Brandon Smith Show, and of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and the entire purpose of the show is one singular thing, and that's to help you live a life that much more free from dysfunction. Feels like forever since I had you sitting in this chair next to me, Whitney.
And your hand was already in my camera view. I saw it. It was like...
Feels like...
Yep, there it is.
It feels like forever since I had you in this chair. It
has been.
It's good to see you.
Thank you, because I was starting to take it personal.
It really is. Despite all the mean things you've done to me this week, it's really good to be having you right there with me. And by the way, for our show today, this is a Ask the Therapist, Dear Workplace Therapist.
It is.
Show. So you have some questions that we'll definitely get into. But how have you been?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. And Sweet Pea, I know, has been coming to the studio. But
sometimes.
And so for those of you that haven't seen Sweet Pea, she was on the picture of the 100th episode.
That's her.
And a lot of comments on Sweet Pea. Sweet Pea's your puppy. And how old is Sweet Pea now?
5 months.
And I have some guesses on what kind of breeds she is, but have you gotten any closer to your guesses, or you don't know?
The only thing I know is hound dog.
Hound dog and beagle. Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah.
We need to do a fancy doodle test so we can figure out
She's
what
pretty awesome. I like having her in the studio.
Thank you. Everyone wants to take her home. Like we took her to get her puppy shots the other day.
I can't blame them. She's pretty awesome.
She is.
Okay.
She's the best.
Agree. We'll still have to meet Walter and Ellie.
We need to arrange this play date. In fact, I think they should all three be on the show at the same time.
I think that's a really bad idea.
It would be fantastic.
I think that's a horrible idea.
You just couldn't have this action going on.
Oh, all the bobbleheads they would knock off?
Yeah, because like one dog here, one dog like hanging off a screen, one on a shelf.
All the cables to unplug and get tangled in.
I think that we should do that.
All right. Well, that would be a form of dysfunction, that's for sure. Puppy dysfunction.
Accurate.
Yeah. So speaking of dysfunction.
Yes.
Shall we do one of these questions?
Let's do it. I like this one.
Okay.
This is a good one, this question. Are you ready? It's been
I don't
a while.
know. Am I?
Sure?
I'm a little rusty, to be honest.
I was saying,
and I'm a little anxious because I haven't done this in a while, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to get.
Well, me too. You know how good I am at reading, so.
Oh, that's right. This is the best part of these shows.
Practicing. Okay. All right, here we go. This one's short, so I'm feeling good about it. Dear Workplace Therapist, I've been listening to your show for a while now and really appreciate the positivity and insights.
Okay.
Also, Whitney is pretty funny and a great co-host. Thank you.
Wait, can I see that? Exactly how that was written? No, I can't.
Don't need to see it. It's there.
Okay.
In parentheses, with a dash in between co-host. After hearing your shows, I'm thinking my manager might qualify as dysfunctional, but I'm not quite sure. What are the signs you think make up a dysfunctional manager? Signed, just wondering.
Okay. So the question is, what makes a dysfunctional manager? So if I get like my top
yes.
3 to 5 things.
Like red flags.
Okay. So I would say these would be my top, so I'm thinking about it, top 5.
Top 5.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Top 5.
Top 5 signs of a dysfunctional.
Top 5 of a dysfunctional manager. So this is how you know you've got a dysfunctional manager.
Okay.
If the person's got all 5 of these, you got real problems.
Okay.
Any of these are probably bad enough, but all 5 of these would be, you just need to find another home.
Okay.
So I'll go from 5 to 1. So number 5, no clarity. They give you no clarity. There's no clarity on expectations. There's no clarity on what your role is, what they want to see from you, what you're responsible for, what you can make decisions on, what you can't. There's just no clarity. And when you ask for it, they give you vague answers.
Okay.
And why that's dysfunctional is because, A, it doesn't set us up for success because we don't know what we're shooting for. So
Right.
there's no target. We're guessing.
Yeah.
And B, it creates a ton of anxiety because you're not sure what you're supposed to be doing. And C, at any point they could pull the rug out from under you and say, "Oh, well, that's not really what I wanted from you, so I'm letting you go." It's a lot harder to do that when they said, "Oh, I want you to do this," and then you do that, right? So it allows, when I've seen clients get in situations where they have a bad boss and the boss is maybe even trying to exit them, this is one of the things that those bad bosses do. They get really vague on expectations, so then they can say, "Oh, you didn't really deliver on what I needed you to."
Okay.
Yeah, you didn't, because they didn't tell you what they needed you to.
Yeah.
So I would put that as number 5.
Okay.
Okay, number 5. Number 4. Number 4, I would say, for the bad boss, this is the boss that does not equip you with the right tools necessary to do your job.
Okay.
So they're not empowering you to do your job. They're micromanaging. Micromanaging would also fall into this one. So we can see the kind of the boss that's kind of getting into the weeds, and they're like just not really giving you all the tools you need. So you need, and sometimes it can be not even the right amount of time. So you're not given the right resources, tools, time to kind of get what you need to get done.
Okay.
So that would be number 4.
So could that also be kind of like overloading you with projects?
It could be. It could be overloading you with projects. Yeah.
Kind of setting you up
Absolutely.
for failure, so
Yeah,
you can't make those deadlines.
Exactly. They're setting up for failure by not giving you the right resources.
Okay.
And micromanaging can come into that a little bit, but mostly it's about not setting you up for success. Okay, so now we get a little bit more in the nitty gritty of the last 3. So number 3, they don't platform you for success, and what I mean by that is they don't allow others to see what good work you've done, or allow you access to others, and they take credit for everything you do.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you might say, "Well, gosh, I want to have coffee with your boss because I'd love to learn more about what she does every day and how she got there." And they say, "No, you can't talk to her. Everything has to go through me." So they kind of hide you, and then they take all the credit for your work. So that would be number 3, which is not good. Number 2, generally just don't trust you, which goes into the micromanaging one I mentioned earlier. So you don't feel trusted. They don't say, "I trust you," and they don't really show any signs of that. So they're always come up behind you, cleaning up what you've done, not listening to you. So there's just not a real sense of trust. Would be number 3. I mean number 2, and we can go into more about that. But if you just don't feel trusted, that's all you need. And then number 1, the worst sign of a dysfunctional boss. And so a few researchers did studies around this about 4 years ago, and they took on the question of what's the worst kind of boss to work for. And I would have expected them to say the angry, abusive boss, or the micromanager, which we've talked about, or there could be a host of others. But
I think I know the answer.
The
to
number
this one
1 was highly inconsistent.
Yeah.
Or the more extreme version that would be like the unmedicated bipolar boss,
Right.
because you never knew what you were going to get.
Happy boss one day.
Angry the next day. So you're sitting in the parking lot, gripping your steering wheel, walking in, not knowing I could get fired today or I could get a raise today.
Right.
So their mood is so unpredictable. They change decisions. They change strategies. You don't know where you stand with them. You don't know where you're trying to go. Really hard, because if we treat our boss as our number 1 customer, well, we're trying to map to their expectations. And if they're constantly changing, both how they feel about us and where they want to go, incredibly dysfunctional.
Yeah. I've heard you talk about this one a lot. I mean, in blogs and
that's
articles.
number 1. That's the worst.
Wow.
So that's the worst. And then backwards would be, then number 2 would be you can't get trust. And then number 3, what was number 3 I said? I can't remember now. But we go all the way down to the bottom one, which is not clarity. So those were all signs. If any of those resonated with you and you're listening to this right now, those would all be things to either be aware of or try and resolve. Some are easier to fix than others. So for example, number 5, number 4, where it's about getting resources or getting clarity, you can push and fix that. Number 2, we're talking about trust. It's possible to do. It takes a little more work. And number 1, you have no control over inconsistency. Very, very difficult to manage that.
So how does that play into the happiness formula? Like, do we feel like number 1, where they're unpredictable, that's like a lose-lose situation and you should leave? Or are there a couple of those like you can kind of live with?
Some of those you can live with because you can manage them. So the workplace happiness formula, for those of you who are familiar with it, It's workplace happiness is a simple formula. It's right job, right culture, and right boss. So right job plus right culture plus right boss. Okay, and all three of those is happiness.
Yeah.
Most people typically have 2 out of 3 in any given moment, and then they manage the one thing that doesn't work. You could easily argue the most important of the 3 is right boss, because the right boss has control over your job and has control over the culture of your team.
True. Yeah.
So if you've got a boss that's got any of those dysfunctions I'd rattled off, I would say you would want to try and resolve those. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good fit. And if they're highly inconsistent, causing tremendous anxiety for you, that's how you would know that's really causing a problem for you. You might want to look for another boss. But you might decide, looking through the formula, that you like your job and you actually like the company culture. It's just the boss that's the issue. Sometimes I have people come to me with that. And after going through the formula, we realize, stay in the company. Just find another boss.
Yeah.
You don't have to completely leave and go
that's true.
to
Yeah,
another company.
That's a good way to look
If you
at
like
it.
everything else, just find another boss.
Yeah.
You don't have to throw the whole thing out. So it gives you a good indication on kind of what your next step should be.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay.
Very good.
So, yeah, we got some time. Why don't we start the next question?
Do we?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
Dear Brandon, I am 62, female, and have worked for a prominent cosmetics company for over 20 years. A new department within the company was formed about a decade ago and is headed up by a person with a difficult personality who will not promote me. She has promoted everyone in the department over me, who ignore me and avoid contact with me for fear of retaliation and associating with me. I have done all I can do, a great job, excellent reviews, but bonuses, but no advancement. I can't afford to quit and have applied for other jobs, but no bites. How do I survive in a toxic, dysfunctional environment with a narcissistic head of department? Signed, stressed and depressed.
Yeah, this question is a good one. It ties very much into the first question, because you have this person that, for whatever reason, just doesn't seem to like her at all, and they don't know how to kind of navigate this person.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one. So normally in these cases, I would say, well, you definitely need to go find another job. Doesn't sound like they necessarily want to go do that or can do that very well. And it also doesn't sound like their boss is going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of what they need to do to kind of get out of this sense, typically when I find people in this situation, they feel trapped. They feel trapped or hopeless. Like there's no path forward and I'm going to be in this forever. Okay, it's like Groundhog Day. Every day, over and over, forever, in the rest of my life, I'm going to have to deal with this.
Yeah.
So what I would say to her is, I think it's a her, regardless, I would say, think about turning this into windows of time, for starters. So like I'm going to do this for 2 years or 1 year or 3 years, and then look for the next chapter and start to chunk it that way so it feels a little more manageable, so you're not trapped. And then start to ask yourself, is there anything that I could do differently or more of to soften my relationship with this leader? So maybe there's some things on her end that she hasn't done that she could be doing more to build that relationship. She said good morning. Has she extended appreciation or given recognition to that leader? So we get back what we give. And so asking herself, have I done everything I can there? And then that would become the next step that I'd recommend. And then the third is, I would still continue, even though I know she's talked about her age, I would still look for other options. What else is out there that you might want to do that could leverage your skills? What would either be interesting or something that maybe would give you the financial reward or the respect that you want, and start to move that way. Now, there are some wild cards in this too. We don't know what the future is going to hold for that boss. So her pain point is that boss. That boss could get promoted. That boss could move to another company.
True.
We don't know. So there's also some value in sticking it out for those reasons. So it's almost like short-term strategy, stick it out and try and make it as least painful as possible. And then have a secondary strategy, like how can I start to plan for whatever the next phase is. At 62, she might be thinking retirement at 65 and maybe want a part-time job somewhere. And that might be an option.
Yeah.
Or maybe not, but that's up to her.
You bring up a good point, because too, if other people feel the same or not really getting along with this new boss and word gets up the chain, I mean, they could move her.
They could.
So you don't want to dip out before, there's that
They could.
chance to.
Yeah, and
move
so
things
I know
around.
we're at time, but there's one more important point that you just brought up. If one person complains about a boss, rarely is that going to have an impact, unless they go to HR and they stop and they drop some of the big bomb phrases like hostile work environment, bullying behavior, feel unsafe, sexual harassment. You start dropping those, that triggers an investigation for HR. But that could also cost you your job if it doesn't go well. So that's a big gamble. What does work is go in as a group or a team. 3 to 5 people go in and say, we are all here to meet with you, HR, because we all want to complain about this person because they are creating an unproductive environment and we're all about to quit. That gets HR's attention. That's when I see bosses get moved. So you'd want to go in as a group in one voice rather than a single individual. Okay, so we're at break. So let's roll into break. When we come back, you have more questions for me, don't you?
I do. I've got them lined up up for you.
Okay. All right. So stay tuned. We'll come back. Whitney's going to hit you some more questions, and we'll see what she's got for me. So we'll be right back. Here's your coaching minute for the week, presented to you by the Leadership Foundry. So credibility, as we know, is super, super important. Let's say now you've gotten into a new job. You've either got a new boss or a new team, and you're trying to build credibility really, really quickly right out of the gate. One of the easiest ways to do that is focus on proactive communication. We all do the reactive communication stuff. People text us, IM us, email us, and we respond. Focus on proactive communication, particularly status updates. It's so simple and easy, but it's a great way to provide quick clarity into what you're working on and build credibility. And I find it to be the best way to enhance trust quickly with a new boss. So put on your calendar either every Friday or every Monday, typically the end or beginning of a week, to send to your boss what are maybe those 3 to 5 things you got accomplished during the week, and what are the 3 to 5 things that you're going to work on the next week. And you'll find after about 3 or 4 or 5 weeks of doing that with your new boss, that they'll say, hey, those were really great. You don't need to send those anymore. I really appreciate what you've been up to. So give it a try. It's a quick way to build credibility and enhance trust right out of the gate. This is the Brandon Smith Show. Of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and we are back from break, and we are taking on questions today. And Whitney, you hit me with a couple right before break, and I said, are you ready? And you said, I do.
I said I do.
Which is not how you respond to the question of, are you ready?
There you go.
Okay, so what's the next question you have for me?
Okay. Dear workplace therapist, a good friend of mine works in a similar industry that I do, and we're both mid-level managers. Recently, her company hired a professional coach for her, and I'm curious, what's the purpose of a coach, and how do I know if I need one? Oh, this is good. I like this question. It sounds sort of like going to a therapist, and I know that that could even help me. Should I ask my boss to hire one for me? How does this work? Signed, Coach Curious.
Okay, really great question. Really great question.
I like this one.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a fair question.
Yeah.
And it's I think I take it for granted because I'm a coach and I get hired, that I just assume people know what a coach does and doesn't do.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's talk about, I'm going to answer this question 2 ways.
Okay.
I'm going to start by saying I just bumped this table and all my bobbleheads started shaking. It's got me a little nervous. So
you do.
I did do that. It did. So first question is, what are the different kinds of coaches? Because it's not just one.
Right.
There's different kinds.
That's what I was thinking.
And then let's talk about what do they do and what do they not do.
Okay.
So sometimes you hire a coach because you're looking, it's a career coach.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the people that come to me, they're really looking for a career coach, but they've been sent to me or they come to me and they say, hey, I don't know what I want my next kind of move to be in my career. And I really want someone to help me kind of think through that, kind of strategize on career planning and position me for that. And they may even be looking for a job, or they may just be thinking more career. But that's really more of a career coach.
Okay.
So they're wanting someone to do that. Okay. Then the next kind of coach is an executive coach, and that kind of can be a couple different forms. The executive coach is going to be the person that might help with your senior leader or a leader of an organization, and they're going to help you kind of think through all the complexity of that and all the ways you need to be spending your time, the behaviors you need to be doing to be more successful, and they might even go around and get 360 feedback, which is what I typically do. So you're getting feedback from 15 to 20 people on what your strengths are, your opportunity areas, and your coach is helping you turn that into an action plan. So a good coach is going to not only be a good sounding board for you, but make everything behavioral. So when people say, gosh, I wish Susan has more executive presence. Well, what does executive presence mean? Like, we use that term all the time, but what does it mean? Well,
Sure.
coach will turn it into behaviors and say, these are the things you need to be doing to demonstrate executive presence in your organization. So they help drive clarity and turn it into actions. And they're a good kind of counsel and sounding board. The other kind of coach, executive coaching that can also happen is turnaround coaching. So sometimes coaches are hired to fix someone. So this is more of an executive coaching skill set, but it's a fixer. So they say, we have this person and they're a leader and they're really competent and they're really skilled, but they are throwing lots of elbows. They are stepping on lots of toes. Like, people are unhappy working for them. They're leaving the organization. We just don't like the vibe, or they're not a good culture fit. So can you fix them and make them play nicer in the sandbox? We like all their skills, but we don't like how they're doing it. That's typically an executive coach too, because that's a hard thing to do. And then the final kind of coach would be more of a junior executive coach, and that would be more of a transition coach. And what I mean by that is we've just promoted this person to director. We went from senior manager to director, and we want to give them now someone who can help them get comfortable in that new role in the first 90 days. Because it's a different role. Because they've been promoted, but all they know is how to be a manager.
Sure.
But they're in a director job, and that's a different job. But they don't know what they need to be doing differently. So can you help guide them on how to make that transition? So this is more about kind of helping people as they move up in their career, kind of do that more effectively. So I think knowing what kind of coach who you are and what you need is important. I think the other element is what a coach does and doesn't do. Coaches should be giving you clarity on kind of what's going on and clarity on a path forward. So it's all about clarity. And then they should be creating that path for you. So action plan and behaviors and holding you accountable and being your greatest fan as you kind of go down that path. And also a trusted resource. What they really don't do is therapy. So therapy goes one level underneath the behaviors.
Sure.
So for example, if I tell a client, I want you to give one piece of positive feedback this week, and after 3 or 4 weeks, they come back to me and say, I can't give positive feedback because no one around me earns it. They're not good enough. Now we have a therapy issue or a need for therapy, because then I'm asking the question, why? The behavior is clear. Just send one piece of positive feedback.
Sure.
But we got to figure out why they're not doing it. So then that's when therapy comes in. And that's for the majority of coaches, that's not in the job description of a typical coach. I have a therapy background, so I might touch that a little bit, but if it really looks like there's a deeper issue here, I might refer them. So now going back to the question, I think the question was, how should I know if I need a coach?
And should she ask her boss, she or he ask her boss to hire one for them, or like how does it work? So like how do they go about getting?
Be careful with the bobbleheads.
And that wasn't you.
That was Albert Einstein.
Why?
Stop. Focus. A little less on the insulting of me, a little more on the focus on the show.
I really thought it was yours.
Let's
and I was like,
modulate. You need a coach. You know what? After all this, I've realized you need a coach. A little clarity on what's going on, a little clarity on the path forward.
Not even sure how to take that.
A little action plan, accountability, cheerleader.
Well, okay. So after this, I do have a follow-up question for you, though. So if this person, Coach Curious, wants a coach, they are asking, is that something I need to go out and do, or something I can request of my workplace to do?
So this is where it gets, I would not encourage you to do it on your own, simply because it can be expensive. It's better to get it through company resources, but timing on when and how you ask for this is going to be important.
Okay.
So the best time to ask for a coach is when you've just been given more responsibilities.
Okay.
Hey, Whitney, we've just decided to double your department. That's when you just say, great. And I would love to explore the possibility of getting an executive coach to work with me to make this transition smooth.
Okay.
And what's implied underneath that is, because if I don't get an executive coach to work with me, I'm going to need extra help and guidance, which means you, boss, are going to have to spend a whole lot more time with me. Do you have 2 hours every day to talk to me, or an hour every day to talk to me, or whatever happens to be? And so in that case, you're more likely to get it. If you just go and go, hey, I've heard about this getting coaching, it sounds like fun, and I'm always looking to grow, that's not,
Sure.
unless the organization has a coaching culture, some do, that you're probably not going to be successful. So you want to tie it into an ask by the organization for you to do more. That's when you want to say, hey, I would love to get a coach to support me. That's a great time to do it.
Okay.
Or when you're getting promoted, great time to do it.
Okay.
You can also do it when you're struggling, but you just need to know the culture of your company. So, and frankly, it does come down to the culture of the company. Some companies are all about coaching, and it's like developmental. Some companies only use coaches when it's trying to fix people. So that's also important too.
So I have a follow-up question to this
Go for it.
listener's question. How do you know you're picking the right coach? What do we need to look for in a coach? Because I feel like that's where a lot of the confusion comes from this. You know, everyone says, oh, get a coach. But not all coaches are created equal.
So you need to be able to state, this is my need. Okay.
Okay.
And then is this the kind of client that you work with? And then you need to, there's that. So their skill set and process needs to match up with your need.
Okay.
What typically people do is when they are going through the process of getting a coach, the common first step is to date coaches. So
Okay.
the organization typically will set you up with 3, and you have a call with each one, or you meet each one to just learn about their approach, learn about who they are, and then also look for a chemistry fit. That's the other piece in this too, is chemistry fit. You got to find one that you like.
Sure.
And some people have a preference on style and approach. Some people have a preference on gender, like male, female, or female. And other people have a preference on just general vibe. Do I seem to connect with this person? So I think you just have to explore that and figure out which one's going to be a good fit for you. That's also why it's good to go through your organization, because if they have a coaching culture, they'll have a pool of coaches, and then that person can kind of quickly pair you with a few.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, I think we got time for one more question.
One more. All right, you ready for this? Here we go.
I'm ready.
Dear workplace therapist, I'm trying to figure out which issues at my work I am supposed to handle on my own and which I'm supposed to take to the HR manager. Is there a formula you can give, or certain areas that definitely flag HR expertise rather than my own? Signed, headed to HR?
Okay. All right, so I'm going to group it into 2 categories
Okay.
to make it nice and simple for everybody. Behavioral, and then process or policy related. Okay. If it's behavioral, so in other words, I got an employee who's not showing up to work. I got an employee with a bad attitude. I got an employee who's not dressing properly. I got an employee that is saying inappropriate things. Okay. While those all could eventually escalate to HR, as the manager, it has to start with you. So, because HR is going to ask you, well, what have you done
Right.
around this?
Sure.
So everything behavioral, you have to take a swing at as a manager. And that can also be about performance too. But everything in that, but often when we think about HR, we're thinking about the stuff outside of performance. You know, they bring smelly food to work. They've got BO. I mean, that stuff. You know, so but
Sure.
you as a manager have to have the first swing at that, first conversations.
Okay.
Try and address it. Now you can go to HR for coaching. Like, I want to have this conversation. Can I kind of run it by you first and get your reaction? I think that's perfectly appropriate, but the responsibility should be on you. If it's policy related, then it should go to HR first. So, or you should be consulting HR. So let's say, you know, this person wants to take extra vacation days. You should probably run that by HR. This person is looking for a raise. Before you kind of approve it, you need to run it by HR. Anything that's kind of tie into a corporate policy, that would be comp or benefit or compliance or anything like that, you would want to have that within the HR realm. So sometimes I find leaders kind of do it the opposite way, and they get into trouble. They give people promotions and raises whenever they want to because they think that's their prerogative as a manager, but then the body odor stuff they want HR to handle. And really it's the other way around because HR is trying to keep alignment and consistency around the people stuff with their number one job to protect the company. That's HR's number one job. Often we think HR is all about people and loving people and hugging people and engagement. It's really about protecting the company, number one. So you want to make sure all the policy stuff goes through them first, but the behavior stuff all needs to go through you first. The only exception to that is if the behavior stuff becomes a potential legal risk to the company. Then it goes directly, you don't pass go, you don't collect $200, you go straight to HR. So that's sexual harassment, bullying behavior, hostile work environment, that kind of stuff. You think you've got an employee or a situation that's causing that, that's a knock on HR's door. Okay. Look at that. 2, 1, bam.
Cut him off.
Bam, I landed the plane right there.
We're not even on anymore.
We are on.
Cameras are off.
We landed the plane. We are on the tarmac. We are taxiing to the gate. Right there. On-time arrival. On-time arrival. No, that's not what it looks like. You're on a plane. It's been a long time since you've flown, hasn't it?
It has not. Thank you very much.
Well, Whitney, this has been an absolute pleasure.
It's been real. It's been fun. But it ain't been real.
Oh, I knew that was coming.
I'm just kidding. I had a blast as always, and I did pretty good on the questions.
You did great. Not one mistake.
You gave great answers.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Positive feedback. Was that a halo? What is that?
That is.
Is that a halo? And thank you for listening and watching. Of course, catch a new show every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. as we drop it on both iTunes as well as Facebook Live. And, of course, check out The Workplace Therapist. That's where we have all of our shows libraried, as well as blogs, articles, other resources just for you. And the Workplace Happiness Formula ebook is there and available for you. And if you enjoyed this show, which we certainly hope you have, rate, review, subscribe it so we can grow the tribe, grow more people out there just like you, trying to make the workplace a little bit healthier, a little less bumpy, a little less dysfunctional. So until the next show, have a great week and an awesome life.